9. Espantos carentes nas noites noturnas de Costco. Horrores escondidos nos corredores assombrados. Sarah rubbed her tired eyes as she stepped inside Costco just before midnight. The store felt completely different at night, stripped of its familiar warmth. Instead, she was met with lingering shadows and an unsettling stillness that vibrated in the air. The flickering fluorescent lights cast a sickly glow across the aisles, creating a scene straight out of a horror film. Every creak of the old building echoed like a warning. She shook her head, convincing herself it was just fatigue. Pushing her cart down the snack aisle, she caught movement at the edge of her vision. A fleeting shadow danced behind a display of cereal boxes. Goosebumps prickled her skin. Heart racing, she focused on the task ahead. The night shift was supposed to help her catch up with her bills, not put her on edge. As she moved deeper into the store, the unsettling feeling only intensified. The overhead speakers crackled to life, murmuring static that sounded like disturbed whispers. "Get out! Get out!" Could she imagine it? Her heart thumped in her chest. The urban legends of the haunted Costco returned to her mind. The tales shared among mothers at school pickup, half joking about a child that vanished years ago, leaving only echoes to haunt the aisles. She rubbed her arms, feeling the chill of the cold air seep through her uniform. Then it happened. An entire stack of cereal boxes lay scattered in a dim corner, out of place and impossibly disturbing. Panic twisted in her gut. What was going on? Forcing herself to laugh it off, she recalled her neighbor watching her daughter tonight. He'd been friendly, charming even, but a faint shadow of doubt clawed at her. She grabbed her phone, tension rising as she dialed him to check in. "Everything's fine," he assured her, but the words held an unsteady edge. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can, leave a like. It really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue." With her unease now a tight ball in her throat, Sarah pushed onward. Shadows clung to her in the icy air. Each creak of the shelves seemed like a whisper, more giggles echoing just out of reach, sending shivers down her spine. The cold from the freezer sections wrapped around her like an icy embrace, suffocating her thoughts. Sweat trickled down her back when she spotted it, a figure behind the towering shelves of frozen foods. Her heart raced, signaling danger. Could it be a trick of the light?
Or was something sinister lurking just behind her? The whispers grew louder, sharper, taunting her as she approached the paper towel aisle, determination fueling her now. And then, total darkness. The lights went out. The entire store plunged into an eerie abyss filled with sorrowful laughter. Sarah's breath hitched. She fumbled for her phone, hoping to light her path. The echoes of giggles morphed into sinister roars, voices of children lost, trapped within the haunted aisles. Panic surged. "Who's there?" she shouted, but her voice trembled with fear. The monsters in the shadows were not simply figments of her imagination, they were real, and her once peaceful suburban world had turned into a hunting ground. In that suffocating void, she felt a cold, clammy hand on her shoulder, icy fingers piercing through her uniform. The store was alive, and it was hungry. The whispers grew louder, begging her to listen, pulling her deeper into the night's horrors. Could she unravel the tragic connection that linked her neighbor, the whispers of the aisle, and the fate of her child before it was too late? The shadows were closing in, and she was running out of time. Sarah's breath caught in her throat as she whirled around, the icy grip on her shoulder vanishing as abruptly as it had appeared. Adrenaline surged, pushing her to flee deeper into the pitch-black expanse of Costco. Shadows seemed to stretch, clawing at her feet like restless spirits as she stumbled over dropped merchandise. "Get out!" the voice returned, now an echoing chorus, much louder, seeming to come from all directions. Were they angry spirits, or just figments of her fraying sanity? Her pulse hammered in her ears, drowning out the whispers, but she couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching, waiting for her to break. Flashing her phone's dim light around, Sarah's trembling hands illuminated nothing but barren shelves and scattered items. She scanned the aisles, searching for any sign of life, any flicker of hope, but all there was the eerie emptiness. The chill seemed to settle into her bones, an invitation to despair that grew stronger with each step. Suddenly, the lights flickered erratically and roared back to life. For a moment, she thought she imagined it, a fleeting glimpse of a figure darting beyond the deli section. An unfamiliar child, perhaps? Panic washed over her. Kids didn't belong in a place like this, not alone, and not at this hour. Her instincts kicked in, forcing her to hold on to her phone with a white-knuckled grip. "Hello?" she called out, her voice trembling. Maybe it's just another night shift coworker, but why would anyone be wandering around in the dark like this? No answer. She stepped forward carefully, mind reeling with what stories she might have to tell, what stories she hoped wouldn't come true. Then she heard it, a soft, humming sound, more sinister than soothing. It twisted around her like a web, pulling her closer. Could she unravel the tragic connection that linked her neighbor, the whispers of the aisle, and the fate of her child before it was too late? The shadows were closing in, and she was running out of time. Sarah's breath caught in her throat as she whirled around, the icy grip on her shoulder vanishing as abruptly as it had appeared. Adrenaline surged, pushing her to flee deeper into the pitch-black expanse of Costco. Shadows seemed to stretch, clawing at her feet like restless spirits as she stumbled over dropped merchandise. "Get out!" the voice returned, now an echoing chorus, much louder, seeming to come from all directions. Were they angry spirits, or just figments of her fraying sanity? Her pulse hammered in her ears, drowning out the whispers, but she couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching, waiting for her to break. Flashing her phone's dim light around, Sarah's trembling hands illuminated nothing but barren shelves and scattered items. She scanned the aisles, searching for any sign of life, any flicker of hope, but all there was the eerie emptiness. The chill seemed to settle into her bones, an invitation to despair that grew stronger with each step. Suddenly, the lights flickered erratically and roared back to life. For a moment, she thought she imagined it, a fleeting glimpse of a figure darting beyond the deli section. An unfamiliar child, perhaps? Panic washed over her. Kids didn't belong in a place like this, not alone, and not at this hour. Her instincts kicked in, forcing her to hold on to her phone with a white-knuckled grip. "Hello?" she called out, her voice trembling. Maybe it's just another night shift coworker, but why would anyone be wandering around in the dark like this? No answer. She stepped forward carefully, mind reeling with what stories she might have to tell, what stories she hoped wouldn't come true. Then she heard it, a soft, humming sound, more sinister than soothing. It twisted around her like a web, pulling her closer. Could she unravel the tragic connection that linked her neighbor, the whispers of the aisle, and the fate of her child before it was too late? The shadows were closing in, and she was running out of time.
She rounded around her like a web, pulling her closer. Peering into the dimness, she saw the outlines of boxes stacked high, the stark glow from flickering fluorescent lights casting eerie shapes that danced along the concrete floor. A heartbeat of dread echoed in the cavernous space. Then, unmistakably, laughter. That sickly sweet sound warmed the chill, only to twist it deeper into her bones, drawing on primal fears. This time it escalated, echoing, overlapping, as if there were dozens of children giggling just beyond her sight. She had to fight the instinct to flee. "Stop it!" she yelled, voice trembling. Harmonizing with her rising terror, the laughter grew louder, more taunting. She mustered every ounce of courage and moved through the narrow aisle between the towering stacks, following the sound. "Please, someone!" Her desperation grew palpable, turning her pleas into whispers. The laughter stopped suddenly, replaced by a heavy silence that felt alive with terrible anticipation. Sarah reached a door at the end of the room, adorned with a faded "employees only" sign. It rattled just enough to suggest movement behind it. Something, no, someone was in there, and she had to know what lurked behind. "If anyone is back there, please, are you okay?" The door pushed open ever so slightly, creaking like a cautionary tale, and she caught a glimpse of shadows playing on the other side. Small figures, their shapes flickering like flames, danced just out of sight. A sickly sweet scent wafted through the opening. Cotton candy? No, something darker, something wrong. She hesitated, feeling drawn toward the unknown, her heart racing in a blend of curiosity and dread. What if it was her daughter, lost in the labyrinth, heartbroken and alone? She leaned closer, peering into the shadowy space. And then it happened. A quick flash of movement darted across her vision. A small figure, just the size of a child, darted out, moving too quickly to be recognized. The shadows wrapped around them, swallowing them whole before she could comprehend. A shrill scream split the air, echoing through the back room like a death cry filled with pure terror. Her heart caught in her throat.
Had her mind faltered? Was this her imagination playing tricks as the being slipped away, leaving only the remnants of fear? Or was there really something malignant at work, stalking her? Gripped by a fight or flight response, she turned to flee, but the backs of the shelves began shifting. The boxes slid as if propelled by unseen hands, trapping her in an ever-shrinking corridor. The temperature dropped sharply, and she could see her breath forming clouds that hung suspended in the air. "Get out! Get out!" The familiar voice returned, no longer an echo, but a guttural growl, whispered from the very shadows themselves. As she rushed toward the door, she could feel eyes piercing through the darkness, watching, waiting. She was not alone in the terror-filled expanse of this forsaken Costco.
Would she find a way to escape the ominous embrace of the darkness, or was this her final stand against forces beyond her understanding? Her heart raced as she pushed harder against the growing panic. As she reached for the handle once more, a hand, cold as death, gripped her wrist from behind, sending shock waves of pure horror coursing through her veins. She couldn't move, couldn't breathe. "Stay," it whispered, drawing her deeper into the nightmare. What horrors awaited her in the dark? The grip on her wrist tightened, biting into her skin with a chilling force. Sarah's heart thundered in her chest, the sound echoing off the cold walls like a war drum counting down her final moments. Desperate, she twisted her wrist, but the hand, too strong, too unsettlingly still, held her in place. "Let me go," she gasped, struggling against the unseen force. Panic swelled like a tidal wave, crashing against her resolve. The silence enveloped her, thick and suffocating, as if the darkness itself was trying to swallow her whole. What she had thought were shadows quickly transformed into a living entity, vibrating with a sinister energy. The laughter suddenly erupted again, echoing off the walls, now sing-song and mockingly playful. It made her skin crawl. "Help me! Someone, please!" Her voice cracked, mingling with the laughter, creating a cacophony of despair and chaos. In the flickering lights, she caught sight of movement. Shadows darting across the shelves, a parade of forms just out of reach. These were not the innocent sprites of childhood they mimicked, but something more grotesque, the playthings of nightmares come to life. Heart sinking, the realization hit her. The echoes of children's laughter no longer sounded blissful, they reverberated with malice. Suddenly, the grip on her wrist released, but not because the entity lost interest. Instead, a whirlwind of shadows burst from the darkness, swirling around her. Sarah stumbled back, almost falling, her breath short as she clutched her chest. The air was heavy with sweet decay and the scent of something sinister. "Stay, play with us." The voice was now closer, a chorus of wheezing breaths mingled together, dripping with anticipation. Instinct kicked in, and she bolted toward the door. Each step felt like a struggle against a force pulling her back. The laughter morphed again into a dissonant harmony, a haunting melody that sent shivers racing down her spine.
She knew it was not just a game. They craved an audience, a participant. She reached the door, pounding on it with frantic fists, but it wouldn't budge. She screamed, desperate to shatter the suffocating atmosphere, desperate for any sign of life. Was there anyone out there besides her, trapped in this hell? The shadows shifted, looming larger, growing longer, as if they were breathing. A serpentine shape slithered closer, eyes glowing like lanterns, ready to ensnare her. Adrenalina surged through her, igniting her limbs, and with a final, desperate push, she threw herself against the door one last time. "Open!" The command erupted from her, raw and primal. But instead of giving way, the door simply vibrated, responding to her yell with an eerie resonance. The flickering lights buzzed and hummed, as if re-enriching the air with the thrill of a predatory hunt. In that moment of cruel clarity, a small voice called to her from the far corner, impossibly familiar. "Mom, is that you?" The sound broke through the chaos, pure and heartbreaking. Hope ignited within her, but before she could react, the lights flickered again, plunging her into near darkness. The shadows twisted like angry spirits, closing in, and panic clawed at her throat. "Stay with us," they hissed, as chilling fingers of fog snaked around her ankles, pulling her down, down into the depths of their trap. "Mom!" The voice broke through once more, tinged with fear. In her heart, she knew she had to find it, find her daughter. Her eyes darted around, searching for any means of escape. But as the shadows surged toward her, reaching with predatory intent, she was left with one unbearable question. Could she risk everything, even her life, to save the one she loved? And in that moment, a door cracked open in the far corner, spilling a dim light. Could hope still exist in this nightmare? What secrets lay hidden beyond the threshold? The dim light beckoned Sarah like a siren, drawing her towards it against the thrumming terror in her chest. Beneath her feet, the ghostly fingers of fog tightened their grip, pulling her down, whispering her name in echoes that chilled her to the bone. "Mom!" the voice cried again, piercing the shroud of darkness like a distress signal. The image of her daughter flickered in her mind, a spark of warmth amidst the icy tendrils swirling around her. She had to reach that door. There was no option now. Either she would find her daughter, or she would be lost forever. With a fierce scream that split the reverberating laughter, Sarah lunged towards the glowing door. The shadows lunged for her as well, their laughter twisting into shrieks of rage. Her feet thudded against the cold floor, propelling her closer to the sliver of light. Time felt warped, each second stretching like an eternity, haunted by the grasping shadows. As she neared, the light pulsated rhythmically, matching her racing heart. She could hear her daughter's voice clearer now, a desperate plea layered beneath the echoes of mad laughter. "Mom!" Straining every muscle, Sarah stretched out her hand, fingers brushing the edge of the doorframe, just as icy fingers latched onto her ankle, pulling her back into the dark. "No!" she screamed, throwing her body against the door. It creaked open with powerful reluctance, revealing a realm on the other side. Beyond the threshold lay not just light, but an ethereal playground, a place filled with colors and sounds that didn't belong in this forsaken store. Hope washed over her, riding high above the blanket of despair. "Anna!" she called, voice trembling with urgency. She stepped inside, half expecting to feel the solidity of a different world. Instead, an invisible force yanked her back hard. The shadows screamed, thrashing around her, trying to keep her from crossing that elusive boundary. The garish light of the doorway flickered, buzzing like a faulty bulb. It was now or never. Wrenching free from the grip on her ankles, she felt a surge of determination. "I will not lose you," she shouted into the void, bolting forward. Just before the doorway clamped shut with a resounding crash, she dove across the threshold. The world inside was vibrant yet distorted. The air was sweet, bearing no signs of decay or malice. Laughing children frolicked in a field of candy-colored grass, their giggles a stark contrast to the nightmarish echoes of the shadows outside. But something felt wrong. The very ground beneath her shifted like sand, the vibrancy tinged with a subtle gray menace. "Mom!" Anna appeared, darting forward with outstretched arms. But even as joy leapt in Sarah's heart, shadows crept at the periphery. They moved like smoke, snaking over the welcoming landscape, blending fear into the illusion of safety. "They want you too, Mom!" Anna's voice trembled, drawing closer. The innocent landscape warped around them, a sanctuary and a trap all at once. "Stay back!" Sarah yelled, as the playground lurched, the shadows' whispers growing louder, teasing her with promises of despair. It was a game. She realized too late. It was always a game. "We have to go!" But as Sarah turned to flee with her daughter, a chilling laughter filled the air, a shadow sweeping toward them with hungry intent. The ground beneath her feet quivered as the whispers transformed into a cacophony of overlapping voices. "Mom, stay here. Play with us." As darkness circled, Sarah's choices shrank into a terrifying finality. She could feel the grip of the nightmare tightening around them, threatening to pull them both back into the arms of despair. Was escape even possible? In that moment of frantic urgency, the area around them flickered like a faulty TV screen, revealing what lay beyond the veil. A swirling abyss that promised more horror than the price of their freedom. "Hold on tight," she yelled, clenching Angela's hand as they braced against the encroaching darkness. But what awaited them on the other side of that swirling void still remained a terrifying question. Could she truly save her daughter, or would they both succumb to the grasping shadows? The void swallowed them whole, pulling at them with a malevolent glee. Sarah's heart raced, each beat a drum signaling her impending doom. She felt Anna's hand slip, the grip of shadows reaching out like claws, gnashing and pulling them apart. "Anna!" Panic shot through her. She squinted into the swirling darkness, searching for a sign of her daughter. The sounds of joy outside faded, replaced by hollow echoes and dreadful whispers that clawed at her sanity. "Mom!" Anna's voice flickered like a dying light, pushing back against the tide of shadows.
"We're together! Just hold on!" Sarah screamed, desperate to keep her daughter close as they were dragged into a space that defied reality. The ground shifted abruptly beneath them, like sinking into quicksand. They landed hard on a warped surface, gasping for breath as the void released its hold. Darkness enveloped them, yet somewhere above, the faintest glimmer of light lingered, a rope out of the abyss. "Where are we?" Anna whispered, the innocence in her voice piercing through the mounting dread. "I don't know," Sarah replied, scanning their surroundings. Shapes twisted in the gloom, grotesque forms shifting just out of sight. They moved with a purpose, whispering her name like a dark chant. They were being hunted. Sarah grabbed Anna's shoulders, forcing her gaze. "Listen to me. We need to find the light." Just then, a loud crash resonated behind them. Sarah spun, her heart thundering. Shadows spiraled closer, drawn by the sound of their fear. They were hungry, and the whispers swelled into a maddening symphony. "Mom, play with us!" Hands reached for them from the depths of the shadows, pulling and tugging. The walls of darkness slithered closer, the air heavy with dread. It was a game, and they were the unwilling players. "Run!" Sarah shouted, yanking Anna behind her. They darted forward, deeper into the belly of the nightmare. The ground beneath them buckled, the colors of joy from earlier twisting into a sickly hue. They passed through macabre scenes, frozen children with vacant eyes, their laughter distorted into sobs, shackled by the overwhelming shadow's powers. Each sight made Sarah's stomach churn. She had to focus. "Look!" Anna pointed. A faint illumination broke the oppressive darkness, shimmering like fairy lights. They raced toward it, breathless, the shadows snarling behind them. But before they could reach the light, the ground erupted. A figure burst into view, its flesh a mass of darkness stitched with glimmering threads, eyes glowing with insatiable hunger. "You don't belong here," it howled, voice like nails scraping across glass. Sarah's breath caught in her throat, fear rocketing her pulse. The creature advanced, mouth stretching impossibly wide, revealing rows of jagged teeth. "Run!" she shouted again, pushing Anna forward, even as icy fingers reached for her. Each step felt like wading through thick sludge, a struggle against something primal, something alive. They plunged toward the light, but the creature hurled itself after them, shadow and fury merging into a single ghastly force.
Callers screamed as they raced through the doorway, the frenzy of the shadow's pursuit at their heels. Just as Sarah felt the warmth of the light beckoning, the darkness surged forward, a powerful wave trying to engulf her completely, dragging her back. "Mom!" Anna cried. In that fleeting moment before they broke through, Sarah's heart sank. What if this was a mirage? What if the shadows twisted reality even further? As they crossed the threshold, everything shattered. Sarah and Anna fell into another void, surrounded by twisted remnants of the playground, shadows writhing on all sides. They landed in a different space entirely, one that echoed with lost cries and lingering madness. "What have we done?" Sarah realized, dread settling into the pit of her stomach. Ahead, an even darker figure loomed, a foreboding presence in this new realm. "You shouldn't have come here," it intoned, voice like cold stone. And with that, the chilling laughter began anew, reverberating through the air, seeping into their bones. As Sarah's world descended further into chaos, she couldn't shake the feeling that perhaps they had escaped one trap only to fall into another far worse. What was this place? What horrors awaited them now? The abyss awaited, its hunger insatiable. Would they ever truly escape, or were they just beginning a new nightmare? The laughter twisted around them, piercing and shrill, as shadows danced in a perverse glee. Sarah's heart raced, not of fear, but of desperation. Anna stood frozen beside her, eyes wide, body trembling, as shadows flitted at the edges of their vision. "Keep moving," Sarah urged, her voice sharp like a blade cutting through fog. They had nowhere to go but deeper into this realm, a landscape of warped metal and shattered dreams. Playground equipment bent unnaturally, swings creaking far too low, and slides slithering like serpents. "What is this place?" Anna asked, her voice barely a whisper, as if afraid the darkness might overhear. "It's just a trick. We'll find a way out. We're just lost." But even as Sarah spoke, fear gnawed at her insides. She could feel the despair around them. It clung like mist, so thick she could almost taste it. Suddenly, the laughter morphed into anguished cries, echoing, howling from behind them. "Come play," it beckoned. "Join us forever." "No, we're not playing," Sarah screamed into the shadows. "You don't have power over us." But the shadows congealed, shifting and swirling, a dark tide threatening to consume their defiance. Shapes began to coalesce, indistinct forms that writhed and twisted, forming reminders of childhood. Friendly faces, now grotesque and threatening. "There!" Anna pointed to a flicker of light in the distance, wavering like a candle lost in a storm. It wasn't enough to illuminate their path, but it felt like hope. "Stay close!" Sarah gripped Anna's hand tight, pulling her along. The light pulsated, beckoning, as the shadows snarled in fury, slashing through the air around them. Each step felt heavier, as if the ground itself was pulling at their feet, desperate to keep them anchored in this hell. With every hurried step, Sarah began to feel the effects of fatigue. Black spots floated in her vision, and panic bubbled in her throat. "We can't stop! We have to reach that light!" she urged, but the words felt hollow. How long could they keep this up? Then a deafening roar erupted behind them. A shadow, larger and more monstrous than before, lunged from the darkness. It had no distinct form, but oozed malice, a furious mass of rage and hunger. Teeth glinted like jagged glass, ready to shred anything in its path. "Mom!" Anna shrieked, and Sarah turned just in time to see the creature lift its claw, shadow spilling like ink from its talons. "Run!" A surge of adrenaline propelled Sarah forward, dragging Anna along. The distance to the light felt agonizingly far. They sprinted across the landscape of twisted metal and echoing madness, the shadows snapping at their heels. "We can't make it!" Anna cried, breathless, and for a moment Sarah's heart lurched with fear. "Yes, we can!" She wouldn't let this horror swallow them. Not now, not after everything. They reached the edge of the light, but before they could step into its warm embrace, a tendril of shadow shot out, coiling around Sarah's ankle. It tightened, pulling her back into the darkness. Panic surged, breath catching in her chest. "Anna, go!" she shouted, fighting against the pull, limbs flailing. "No, Mum!" But Anna couldn't hold on. In one heart-stopping moment, desperation sparkled in her eyes before she turned and darted towards the light, leaving Sarah to battle the darkness alone. "Anna!" The darkness jerked Sarah back as she watched her daughter vanish into the glow. The laughter returned, mocking her, drowning her in despair, as the figure of shadows towered over her. "You shouldn't have come without her," it hissed, in a voice that slithered through her mind like broken glass. Just when Sarah thought all hope was gone, she felt a strange warmth in her heart. The flicker of light echoed inside her, growing stronger. Her determination ignited. "I will find her," she shouted defiantly, the shadows around her shivering at her conviction. But what would she have to face to get her daughter back? The ground beneath her shifted, cracks splintering open, revealing fathomless depths filled with more shadowy figures that reached up, beckoning her down. And as her reality began to crumble, Sarah realized this fight was just beginning. What lies below could be even darker than what chased them above. Was the light truly salvation, or just another trap? The shadows retaliated, swirling and shrieking. What twisted horrors awaited them next, and could Sarah truly conquer the darkness?
She could hear the desperate cries the lost, voices stretching out, echoing in the darkness like a siren's song. "Why leave? Stay with us," they whispered, tainting the air with an enticing chill. Ignoring them took every ounce of her strength. She dug her fingers into the cold earth, pulling herself up, fighting against the downward pull of despair. Each tremor beneath her feet seemed to pulse with a life of its own, coaxing her closer to the yawning abyss. The laughter morphed into something more sinister, a cacophony of weeping and gnashing teeth. "Anna!" she screamed, her voice raw and fractured. Where there once stood her daughter was only the memory of her terrified face, desperately yearning for safety. Sarah could not let that face be the last image haunting her mind. She was here, and she needed to act. The flicker of light still danced tantalizingly close, its warmth a cruel reminder of what she had lost. She took a deep breath, plunging further into the shadows. The darkness writhed around her, tendrils gripping her limbs, choking her resolve. Suddenly, a low growl erupted from the shadows. A figure materialized, grotesque and large. It bore no features, only swirling blackness swirling within its gaping maw. Its claws glinted, catching the faintest hint of light as it swiped at her. She darted sideways, barely escaping its grasp. Fear surged through her veins like icy water. Each step pulled her deeper into the depths of this twisted playground, a hellish reflection of a place meant for happiness. She clawed at her sanity, whispering, "You will find her."
A guttural laugh enveloped her, combining with the soft sobs of the lost. The creature chased her, moving like smoke, writhing and twisting as it stalked its prey. "You think you can outrun shadows?" it taunted, weaving in and out of her vision, both close and impossibly remote. Each time she looked behind, it seemed nearer, its breath a chilling whisper against her neck. Rounding a corner of rusted metal, Sarah burst through a thicket of tangled play structures, sweat glistening on her brow. Her heart thundered in her ears as she glanced over her shoulder. The creature was still in pursuit, and its relentless hunger was palpable, a black hole that threatened to consume her very essence. "Help me!" The plea slipped from her lips unbidden. The shadows around her thickened in response, welcoming her call. In the chaos, she spotted something glinting on the ground ahead. A small, forgotten toy, half buried in the dirt. It was Anna's favorite, its cheerful colors now dulled by grime and the weight of despair. Instinct propelled Sarah forward. She snatched the toy, clutching it like a lifeline. The moment it touched her palm, the shadows recoiled, momentarily blinded by the light that pulsed from the toy. But that respite was fleeting. The creature lunged again, its maw snapping close enough that she could feel the coldness wash over her.
Clenching the toy tighter, she pressed on, her feet pounding against the ground. She could hear the whispers of the shadows grow louder, a tangled web of despair spinning around her, threatening to ensnare her soul. "You will lose everything." The ground continued to shift underfoot. Fissures cracked and splintered, jagged reminders of the darkness hungry for her fall. Each splash of cold air felt like knives against her skin. A chill inched its way down her spine, and for a moment she hesitated. What if she truly was alone in this never-ending nightmare? Then she saw it, a flicker of movement in the periphery. Her heart raced. Was it her mind playing tricks, or was something waiting in the darkness? Anna? Suddenly, a soft giggle pealed through the night, unmistakably familiar, a beacon of innocence in a landscape of horror. Hope surged alongside the shadows, confusing her, battling for dominance. "Mommy, help!" The cry came like a knife to her heart, both bone-chilling and intoxicatingly sweet. She followed it, adrenaline pumping as she stumbled through the jagged landscape. The shadows screamed and writhed around her, desperate to pull her toward their dark embrace. But she wasn't just running anymore. Now she was fighting, every ounce of anguish pushing her forward. The light flickered brighter ahead, growing incandescent, promising salvation. Yet, as she approached, a figure lurked in its glow. Not her daughter, but another lost soul, their eyes wide with an unspeakable horror. "Stay back!" they shrieked, pointing towards the encroaching shadows. "You don't understand what's coming for you." Sarah skidded to a halt, frozen between the pull of the light and the cry of the unknown. She felt the shadows creep closer, their voices smothering her. What had she stumbled into? Did she dare move closer to the light, or would this specter lead her to another layer of torment? The choice loomed before her, like a predator, waiting in silence.
The flickering light surrounded Sarah, illuminating her damp face and igniting her desperate hope into a raging fire of determination. "I have to find Anna," she shouted through gritted teeth, pushing back against the encroaching shadows, each whisper more menacing than the last. The presence behind her loomed closer, a palpable threat threatening to wipe out everything she clutched onto. "You're running toward your doom," the figure warned, their eyes wide and filled with the dread that mirrored her own. Shadows twisted around them, their bodies shifting and curling, as if they had minds of their own, eager to consume any last flicker of will. "I don't care! I'm not leaving without my daughter!" Sarah shouted, fervor swelling within her. Ignoring the figure's warnings, she surged toward the light, fueled by the remnants of her love for Anna. The whispers intensified, echoing through the gloom, drowning her cries in dark laughter. As the figure scrambled backward, Sarah did not look back.
She pushed forward, resolute, but the shadows danced like phantoms around her legs, tugging and pulling, and every inch felt like running through molasses. The closer she got, the tighter their grip became. Panic surged through her. It felt like being back in the grip of those icy fingers, as if her very being was being siphoned away. "Anna, I'm coming!" she screamed, her voice cutting through the cacophony. But the shadows only responded with a chilling chorus of laughter that forked through her heart. And then, just as despair threatened to snatch her soul, she locked eyes with the figure again. "Mom!" The familiar voice was a tender thread wrapped in a tight embrace. The recognition hit her, nearly making her knees buckle. It felt like a magic lasso reeling her back from the brink. "Anna!" She dashed towards the shadows as they grew sadistic in their frenzy, trying to close the space for her. With each heartbeat, the distance between them shrank. Her daughter stood there, a small silhouette flickering like a candle swallowed by the storm. "Mom, help!" Anna cried, extending her hand, filled with fierce innocence that pierced through the menacing gloom. Just a little closer. A rush of adrenaline propelled Sarah forward, the shadows screeching furiously, blurring around her senses. She reached out with trembling fingers, grasping hers as fear mingled with an unbreakable bond of love. But just as their fingers connected, darkness lashed out. Sarah felt it, an otherworldly force, like being trapped in a vice, pulling her backward with desperate determination. It wrapped around her, trying to tear Anna from her embrace. "No, you won't take her!" Sarah screamed, pulling hard enough to feel the ripples of the world around them crackle. "I will fight for her." With all her might, she pressed against the shadows. The warmth of Anna's hand filled her with strength, coursing through her veins like wildfire. The shadows shrieked in response, twisting and writhing, screaming as they recoiled from the purity of maternal bond that surged through Sarah like a beacon. "Hold on tight," Sarah shouted, determination running through her as she planted her feet, anchoring herself. The shadows snarled, desperate and unforgiving, but they were battling a force greater than themselves. In that very moment, she unleashed all her love, the love forged in sleepless nights, laughter-filled days, the warmth of bedtime stories. For Anna, she would conquer the dark. With a resounding roar that drowned out the chilling whispers, the darkness shattered into fragments like shattered glass, trailing spectral wisps behind it. Sarah and Anna surged forward, with every ounce of willpower, passing through the remaining threads of darkness, cradling each other through the threshold of light. As they broke free, warmth wrapped around them, a flush of comfort enveloping their bodies, whispering reassurance. Basking in the glow, escaping the shadows, was pure freedom.
They emergian into a night, Costco now tranquil and quiet, barely a reminder of the horrors they just faced. An ordinary landscape welcomed them back, the parking lot glowing under the moonlight. Sarah looked down at Anna, who smiled brighter than any star, safe in her mother's arms. "Did we win, Mommy?" Anna asked, confusion softening her wide eyes. "I think we did," Sarah replied, breathless. "But now we're never stepping foot in there again." She chuckled lightly, relief flooding through her borrowed strength. No more night shifts, no more haunted aisles. As they walked away, hand in hand, the echoes of shadows faded behind them. But in her heart, Sarah knew they would always remain, a reminder of what love could conquer through the darkness. They climbed into their car, breathing deeply, filled with hope and new beginnings. The world outside was impossibly bright. The horrors of the night melted away into distant memory, as Sarah tucked a loose strand of hair behind Anna's ear, grateful for every moment they had together. Now it was time to heal. So, if you loved this story, you need to subscribe now. Don't wait one more second. Hit that like button and feed the algorithm. Flood the comments below with your reactions, theories about this ending, or your own haunting tales. And do me a huge favor. Share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. This is the moment to show your support. Keep the stories coming. Together, we can dive into the depths of more mysteries ahead.